Are you caring for others while working and trying to live your own life? Wondering how to find the time for your own health and happiness? Well, you're in the right place. The Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, which is part of the Whole Care Network, is the show where real family caregivers share how to be happy and healthy while caring for others. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Elizabeth Miller. I'm a fellow family caregiver, a care advocate, a professional speaker, author, certified caregiving consultant, and certified senior advisor. If this is your first time listening, thank you for being here. This is a show produced bi-weekly to help family caregivers integrate self-care and caregiving into their lives. Each episode has an accompanying show notes page. If you'd like more detail about the topics, products, and resources we speak about, or you want to see any of the related photos, you'll find the show notes by going to the website happyhealthycaregiver.com, and underneath the podcast menu, click the image or episode number for today's show. Now let's get to it. Let's jump into this episode. I can't believe it. It's the 200th episode of Happy Healthy Caregiver. And what better time to kind of bring a fresh new look to things. Grateful that you are here, and bear with us as we are trying new technology and new things to kind of get this podcast even further out into the world. Every episode starts with a formula. I like to share an announcement. I like to talk about what I'm reading. I like to share a favorite thing. And then I want to introduce our guest and invite you to listen and hear what we're going to talk about. My announcement for today is, if you haven't heard yet about our Self-Care at Sea cruise, you might be living under a rock, frankly. So Self-Care at Sea cruise is one that I'm doing with fellow care advocates in this space, fellow podcasters, influencers, and people who you may also follow. We have planned a terrific event this October in 2025 where we want to invite you to come and have the respite you deserve as family caregivers, have something to look forward to throughout the year, and then enjoy yourself while you're there, and then leave with a community of resources and support and people in your wheelhouse that you can really refer to and be empowered and encouraged by. I invite you to check that out. You can find out more information about this special cruise. It's a Norwegian cruise. We invite anybody, not just family caregivers. So if you know of other people who would like to come along on the cruise, great. We're going to have some special things for family caregivers that you can decide you want to participate in or not. And you can learn all about this at bit.ly/HHC Self-Care Cruise. I'd like to thank our episode sponsor today, Crazy Compression. Do you ever feel like your feet and your legs are exhausted by the end of the day? Or maybe you've noticed a bit of swelling after sitting or standing for too long? Well, I want to introduce you to Crazy Compression Socks. It's a fun solution to keeping your legs feeling fresh and energized. These aren't just any socks, by the way. They're designed to boost circulation, reduce fatigue, and make a serious style statement. Crazy Compression Socks combine top-notch support with the bold, fun patterns that let you express your personality. Head over to crazycompression.com and use the code HHC20 for 20% off of your order, and give your legs the energy they deserve. For this episode segment of What I'm Reading, well, I have read several of Emily Henry's books, and she continues to not disappoint me. Beach Read is a contemporary romance book about two young people who are polar opposites. One is a romance writer who no longer believes in love, and the other is a literary writer stuck in a rut. They engage in a summer-long challenge that may just upend everything they believe about happily ever afters. I ranked it 4 out of 5 stars on my Goodread because, frankly, it captivated me on my walks and made me look forward to taking more walks, which is a good thing. Their banter of the characters is glorious. And overall, I thought the audiobook was great, which is why I don't have it here to show you. I will link to that in the show notes so that you can check out Beach Read for yourself. My favorite thing is something that is right on my finger here. My kids gifted me an Oura ring for my birthday last year, and I've been using it for, a little over 6 months, and I've learned much about my sleep, my activity, my stress. While the actual smart ring was a gift, I do, however, pay a monthly subscription fee of about $6. I wear this silver ring on my pointer finger, which is what the Aura company recommends for gathering the best data. And I'm currently no longer wearing my Apple Watch since this less bulky piece of jewelry gathers the same health data and keeps its charge way, way, way better than my Apple Watch ever did. The only thing I'm really missing about my Apple Watch is not knowing the time, but I typically have my iPhone with me and I don't have the feature of finding my iPhone when I misplace it on my Oura Ring either, which is something that I miss. I also like how the Oura Ring automatically tracks my activity without me having to kind of tell it that I'm doing something. It gets to know you and it kind of knows that, oh, you're doing strength training now, or oh, you went to a boxing class, or you're walking the dogs. You access all of their data through the Aura app on your phone, and the app tracks your trends and will alert you of things that look off from what is typical. My plan is to kind of keep using this ring until it no longer works. However, my daughter found a dupe that basically offers pretty much the same health information, but doesn't have the monthly subscription fee. And I will share a link to that in the show notes so that you can check out the dupe or you can check out the Oura Ring. No matter what option you look at for your smart ring, you definitely want to order their sizing kit so that you can make sure that you get the right size for you. And one more thing to note is that it appears that you can use your flexible or your health savings account to pay for these as well. So I will link in the show notes. Well, let's meet our extra special caregivers in the spotlight today for this 200th episode of Happy Healthy Caregiver. It's a milestone episode of the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast. And so I'm thrilled to share something extra special with you all. I'm introducing two amazing people who mean the world to me, my sisters. You may already be familiar with my older sister, Susie, who was my mom's primary caregiver for many years and has been featured on 2 previous episodes of Happy Healthy Caregiver. I think that might be a record now that she's got her 3rd. However, this is the first time that you're going to meet my younger sister, Anne, who has been a part of our caregiving journey as well. Together, we'll reflect on our upbringing, caregiving experiences, and what it's been like to share the care for over a decade. We'll also dive into our caregiving roles, including our care plan for our brother Tom, who lives with a developmental disability. Plus, we'll talk about what self-care really looks like for these Behe sisters now. I hope you enjoy the show. All right, sisters, let's do it. Sisterpower.
Sisterpower.
So excited to have a chat with you too. It's welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast. And this is a special podcast with you ladies because it's the 200th episode of the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast, which I'm like, how did that happen? How did 200 episodes happen? But it's also, I think, thank you. It's also way more than that because I think by the time that this publishes in March, we will have also be 10 years old. As far as Happy Healthy Caregiver will be 10 years old. And that's crazy that this has been going on that long. But I think that's also signifies that we've been over a decade of like pretty intense caregiving years with family members, first with our parents, and we've had some other relatives that we've stepped in and helped out with as well, and certainly now with our brother Tom. So it's hard to believe that we've got, it's a huge milestone. I just kind of want to like percolate on that a second and be like, wow, it's over a decade.
Wow. Elizabeth too. Yeah, it is a decade, but you started the Happy Health Caregiver a few years in, and we were caregiving for a decade before that,
Oh, no doubt.
and
No
then
doubt. Yeah.
and I just want to recognize that this is how much that you have added to the caregiving community by creating this forum and having all of the things. So stop crying and
Oh, I'm gonna leak like probably 6 times, but that's normal. I at least one time per episode because we're human. But yeah, you're right. Like honestly, like when people ask how long we've been caregiving, it's hard. It's a hard thing to answer because we've had a brother, our, most of our lives, all of our lives for Annie and I, most of your life for Susie, like that needed a special attention. So support in some way. But also, I think our parents were declining. I say most of our adult lives, they were declining, which is
You
kind
ever
of,
really stop being a caregiver? That's the truth, though. There's always someone in your life. There's always someone, if it's not
yeah,
your immediate family, it's,
especially in a big family.
yeah, it's so important the work you're doing. I just
Aw,
really am so
thank
proud of
you.
you, sister.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we kick off the show. This might look familiar to you, sister. And maybe you'd like to introduce this jar. People get tired of hearing me. So you know about this Happy Healthy Caregiver jar, but when did this start, Susie?
When did it start? 5 years ago? When did you start it?
No, it originated as a gift to you.
Oh, is that when it originated? I
Yeah.
did not realize that. I love it. Yes, so you pull out a quote every day. It's an inspiration and it gets you thinking, and it's a wonderful tool to just ground you.
Yeah. It
Daily
was
affirmation.
it was initiated because when we transitioned care from me being a primary caregiver to you, and we packed up mom in the U-Haul and drove off to Philadelphia, first in your house and then later into Michigan. Like, who wants to do that? Who wants to be like, here, sister, here, you've got mom now. And we kind of do that now, frankly, with Tom, with us being snowbird caregivers. There's
Yeah.
certainly a transition there. But that's where it initiated. And I maybe this comes from mom, but I love quotes and things. And I like to I have little journals, like remember all her little journals, which she would write down little things
I
that,
have that little book that she collected all, and she would tape them all in. She'd clip them out of newspapers. We have that still. It's here.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, she just, and so I definitely have some, we all have pieces, I think, of our parents in us, but um I honest confession here is that sometimes when I pull these out during the podcast, I don't read what's actually on here because I would be reading the same ones sometimes over and over again. So that's just a little confession for today. But the one I picked out for today's show is you call it chaos, we call it family.
That's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's like, people say if you had to put your trash and your family drama and all of that out to the curb, you would likely still take yours back in if you had to choose from everybody else's.
I've heard that.
That's
That's
probably
good.
true. I probably
Yeah.
would, if it was a HOA, I'd probably get kicked out if they saw all the trash out front.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but I think that's normal. I mean, there was certainly a time growing up where I felt like, um, we were the Waltons, but then you start to get older and you realize like, no, there's some things here. There's definitely some things here. So let's first introduce, because I know you all, but let's introduce you to the podcast listeners. I'd love to just kind of, um, where do you live? What do you do for a living? What's your family like there? And then we're going to kind of get into the care stuff on its own. But like, who are you? Who are you, Anne? Let's start with you.
Me? Okay. Um, well, Ann Woodbury is the youngest of six of you guys. I live in the Falls Church, Virginia, which is just outside of DC. So basically in DC, and I work in Arlington. I own a public relations company that focuses on health and healthcare called Cura Strategies. Cura is Latin for to care for, to heal. And we help all kinds of healthcare nonprofits and companies with their public relations and integrated marketing needs. Probably more importantly, though, I am the mom of two, Tyler and Connor, and wife of Jeff of 24, 3 years,
Oh,
three.
wow.
It'll be 24 years this April. Um, and really blessed that Jeff is a stay-at-home dad, and has been for over a decade, which has been really helpful for us, for me, and so I haven't had as much of the caregiving, daily burdens. I think it's the hardest job in the world to be a stay-at-home parent. I really, truly, and I'm so grateful that he's able to do that. Tyler is a junior in high school. Connor is in the military, based in Columbus, Georgia. So I get to see you sometimes when we come down and see him. And he is headed to Alaska to um, uh,
Amazing.
be based there.
Amazing. And we got to toot your horn, sister, because you were recently inducted into the Washington PRSA, I might not be saying it right, Hall of Fame. I'm like, my
Yeah,
sister's in the
good
Hall of
job.
Fame.
I know. I was
So
there. I got to be there to watch.
Yeah,
It was
you
so
did.
exciting, man.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. All
Thank
right,
you.
Susie, introduce yourself for the folks.
Okay. I'm Susie Morrell. I am the oldest of the three sisters. I'm not going to say by how many years, but my younger sisters. I live in Michigan, in northeastern Michigan, to be up here by Alpena, Michigan. I'm on the eastern. I don't, it kind of flip-flops, doesn't it? It's backwards on the camera. So I live on Hubbard Lake, which has been in our family for years. I bought the home off the family after our parents passed away to continue what we call being Hubbard Lake happy. This place has been in our family for what, almost 25 years. So
Yeah.
I am a professional artist. I work here. I have a studio here. I paint. I'm an oil painter. I'm in two galleries in Michigan. One's in Alpena called the Thunder Bay Art Gallery. The other one is in Suttons Bay, which is over on the west side of the state near Traverse City. So I sell my small works there. I'm also online and I work by commission. So
Nice.
I keep real busy doing that. I have
What's your website, Sue? Tell people what your website is.
SusieMorrell.com. I think
Yeah.
Elizabeth's going to put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put all the Cura strategies. Susie Morrell. Tell us about your kids and your family,
Right.
Suze.
Yeah. Oh, I also rent the Acorn Cottage. Maybe we could put that in that's part
Yes.
of yeah, my work gig is I have a small rental on the lake. It's a 1 bedroom. It's beautiful and
It's
does very
gorgeous.
yeah, where I block it when family comes, but it's open when there's no family or friends here. My children, I have 4 children. My oldest, David, 31, works for Cura Strategies. My daughter recently engaged.
I'm very exciting.
I know. She's a nurse at Children's Hospital. She works in the pediatric cardiac ICU there, loves her job. And then she's 28, and I have identical twin boys, 26. They live in Yardley, Pennsylvania, work for GP
Nice.
Strategies. So they
Yeah.
work remote and all kids launched, thriving, working. So
Good.
I was just back for the holiday for 3.5 weeks to visit. So it was great to see them all.
I know. It's fun to be home family. And then I get, afterwards I get into kind of like this, I'm ready to get back into my routine and stuff. I think what's amazing too is like hearing us and putting all that together is like all of us are entrepreneurs. And our dad was like, he loved business and he loved chatting with us about our work lives and stuff. But he did not know, Anne, that you started your PR company. And he certainly didn't know about my thing because I started it after he passed away. But in Susie, he knew you were a painter, but I don't think he realized all of the things that you exploded into. So pretty amazing too, I think, while, during this caregiving decade of building businesses, because that is not for the faint of heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True
He didn't know
that.
he was such a role model in the
Mm,
rural world.
he
Yeah.
was.
Ooh, our oldest brother, had his own business for quite a while.
Yeah, but and we should say that there's, we're the sisters of the Behe bunch. We've got, Marcia, Jan, and Cindy here. If you're looking at the at the squares on YouTube, but we're also have 3 brothers. So our oldest Skip, birth name Basil, and then Tom born with an intellectual developmental disability, and then Tim, and certainly they have have involvement in all of kind of what we're talking about, but we're certainly going to focus on the Sisterpower part of it today. But I think it's important kind of to say, too, like before we get into all that, like what was it like? I was going to say growing up Behe, but really, Susie, we got to start with you because you were a Lanzoni before you were a Behe.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Well, yeah, briefly, just to tell the story. So, our mother is our natural mother of all the children. My father, Basil Anthony Lanzoni, was a dentist. He was a practicing dentist. When my mom married, they ended up having 4 children. My natural father passed away when he was 37. My mom was 27.
Wow.
She had 4 children. Yeah, so he died
Under
suddenly.
10, right?
Excuse me?
Under the ages of 10.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
Tim was 2 years old, I
I think
think.
Skip was 9 and down on from there when he passed away. Now he passed away of leukemia, tragically diagnosed in January, passed away the day after Christmas that year. So the day after Christmas is always a little somber for us, and we think about him. But the bright side of the story is mom went back to nursing. She started caring for Jack Behe, which ended up being the father of Larry Behe, who she started to date. He was a single, amazing career working for Brockway Glass. She met him caring for his father. They started dating. Literally, I think 2 years later. I mean, we were on a trajectory to be moving back to Michigan with her brother, my mom's brother, Carol's brother, but started dating Larry. They ended up falling in love, marrying. Like 2, 3 years later, they had Elizabeth, and then they had Annie. So four became six, the Brady Bunch. We became
Yeah.
3 and 3. And so that was in when were you born, Elizabeth? Yeah, so
1971. I mean,
yeah, so from 1971 on, we've had six children, and it's been a wonderful life. And I have to say, when you say growing up Behe, my life as a Lanzoni was wonderful. We lived in a small town. Brockway was a small, primarily Italian town, I want to say, but a great little place, little oasis to grow up in. And then Larry moved from DuBois to Brockway. We continued to build the house that my father had started. And I want to say, I think we had a magical life. I mean, we were lucky that mom was a stay-at-home mom, and it was a very traditional, I think. I remember
yeah.
dad coming home, Larry coming home at lunchtime for work. He worked so close. So, yeah,
Yeah.
what was your experience? That was my experience. I thought it was wonderful.
No, I think it's important that we kind of lay that out. And mom used to love to tell the story that, called dad her hero. And he certainly wasn't perfect. No human is perfect. And but he definitely provided and raised us all well. That family man gave us lots of great family values. And I loved growing up in Brockway, and then later moving to Atlanta was kind of a shock for Annie and I in middle school, which was crazy. But I just think too, like we've got to. I don't think sometimes about mom and how she cared for her first husband, how she was a nurse, like she was, registered nurse, so caring obviously for people, meeting dad through that network. Um, and then later needing, care herself certainly. But I don't, it's just interesting how things kind of come full circle there. I do think, if anything, like looking back, I feel like we had a great life. We played a lot. We played outside. We had family dinners. We, watched TV together. We,
We
did
only had three
wonderful.
channels for a long time on the hill, right? We used to all go out and play. We were like the Sandlot kids. Remember, mom would ring that
Yeah,
big bell. We had the house on
the
the top
dinner
of the hill.
bell.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still have the dinner bell. She'd come out and ring that bell, and we'd be like, "Oh, time to go home."
I mean, and that's what it was like. And I do think though that, like, and mom did some things for herself, but I kind of, as a, self-care coach now, look back on that, and I'm like, she played bridge. But to me, I feel like too, she spent a lot of time in the kitchen and the laundry room. And I remember that was one of the advice, Susie, that you gave me when I had kids, is like, when the kids come up and ask you to play, like, don't get so caught up in your to-do list, just kind of drop things and be in that moment with them, because there's always stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll never be bored. Annie, what was it like growing up Behe?
Oh, I'm with Susie and you. I mean, I thought Brockway was a perfect place to grow up. Although I'm glad that we left when we did, and like that we ended up going into Atlanta and, the Dunwoody suburbs area. And I loved growing up there too. So I feel like we had the best of both worlds, small town and big city.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I definitely attribute like a lot of our character and principles to more of the small town and like the way of thinking. Um, to the roots that mom and dad had in a small town too. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,
Everyone looked after everyone. It was really,
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
yeah.
everybody. I mean, I still feel like on that, we follow the Brockway page on Facebook. Like, we still kind of,
Mhm.
you know the people. Somehow there was an old holiday picture of our family that got posted, and
Yeah,
people
who
were
posted
commenting.
that?
I'm thinking maybe it was Tom. I don't know if it was him, but it said
Not
anonymous.
my
But
best years.
yeah, it certainly it's interesting there. I'm curious too. Do you think like birth order has has anything to do, like what they
Oh yeah.
commonly? Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, Susie definitely, like, you're the new matriarch, whether you like it or not. I
Yeah,
guess,
birth
like
order.
the
Yeah.
oldest daughter,
Yeah. Well, Skip's the oldest, but
oldest daughter though.
yeah,
It's
oldest daughter. Yeah. It
it's
falls to you. So,
it.
And you've always been a caregiver,
I've
Susie.
always
I
been a
mean, even
nurturer. I know it's in my, yeah, I just,
that's your
A
spiritual gift.
nurturer.
It's your
Yeah.
spiritual gift is the nurturing and the
yeah.
caregiving. It's really,
I
you
did my
love
spiritual
taking.
gifts at church and they were hospitality was one of them, hospitality.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
Yeah,
believe it.
I think it's a little bit weird with our like break in between Tim and I. There's a 6 year gap.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel like I identify more like when you're looking at it as an oldest than as a middle child. I don't necessarily feel like I have middle child syndrome
Can I
there.
just speak to that? I was
Yeah.
the only girl for the longest time, and I have to say, when you and Annie came along, I was so excited because I was like 10 or 11. It was the perfect age to be like caring for like real babies. I loved it. I just, we were so close.
So
Yeah, you
close.
were I say like a cool mom almost because like, I would go to you for my advice about all the things I wouldn't feel comfortable going to
Oh,
mom to. Yeah.
all the boy stuff. I remember like sitting on the top of the waiting for Susie to come home. I would just like wait and I would like cry so hard when you left for college and I wanted you to
Flubber.
run to be Miss America.
I honestly,
Let
like,
me go.
when I was in
I love you.
college, I never wanted to go on spring break anywhere except home. I couldn't wait to get home. It was such a joy to be with you girls. Yeah, and we'd all sleep together in the same bed.
I
And
was gonna say that you were a teenager, Susie, and like I slept with you, and then you rolled out to go to college. I moved over. Annie probably was in the crib. I don't know how long,
I was in the crib for a long time.
a long time, or maybe they took the bars off of it, and you kind of rolled in. And of course, we shared a room for many many years until we moved to Atlanta. But as a teenager, to share your room with like us.
I loved it. I loved it. I just think I had that. Yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't get enough of you. We would literally like latch onto your leg when you left.
I still,
It had to have
oh,
been miserable to
I
go
still
when you.
I know
do.
we would
Yeah.
blubber, as Elizabeth said. We would all sob. Like I still have, and going as I'm in the family home here that has a lot of generations of stuff. As I go through it,
Oh,
I've found the little notes that you wrote, and just like with little crying faces and tears, and because
yeah.
I was in college and you guys were at home, and
I'm
when
sure
I
a
was,
lot of
it
Snoopies
probably felt
and
like a long time for you that I was away.
And
Snoopies and
Ziggy.
Ziggies. We used to draw the Ziggies and the Snoopies, but they are like little treasures. I just cleaned out my office, and you find these little treasures in places, which is kind of the cool part. Kind of, it's hard. The sentimental stuff and going through generational clutter is a big process that I know we've got all on our plates. Well, let's talk about caregiving. How would you describe your role? Annie, let's start with you. How would you describe your role in like the caregiving um, situation with parents, with our brother Tom, with other family members that we've had to step in to help as well?
Um, I definitely feel like I am not as in the thick of the caregiving right now as you guys are with Tom in particular, at all. I would say, I feel guilty, frankly, for, not doing more. Um, but back in with mom and dad, I do feel like we often, tag teamed. And there was times when like Elizabeth, you were close, or sometimes my job was a little bit more flexible. And because I had Jeff staying at home a lot and he had more flexibility, it was easier for me to go down. Like when mom had, I remember she was in the hospital with that UTI and it was making her think all those weird things. Um,
Mm.
and there was the time when she was intubated and like I was supposed to go to Amsterdam and I had to like cancel that trip like suddenly and have somebody else go to my client meeting. And um, I just remember, being with dad and mom when we decided, obviously we were all there, but like when we decided that he was going to go into hospice, that was something that was really memorable.
You were
Um,
like you were there though in the room with mom and dad. I remember because we tag team. We weren't all there
We did
necessarily at the
tag
same
team.
time.
Yeah,
And like trying to tell, when dad said he was done
yeah.
and didn't want to be intubated anymore, and mom was like, one more time, Larry, like that story wrecks me.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
mom
remember
was.
leaving. I had been there a week and it was you tagging down to come down to make those decisions. And I remember dad not wanting me to
Mm.
leave. He wanted all his girls around him. And I just remember that was so agonizing. I said,
Yeah.
away for a week. I have to get home to my kids. Annie's going to be here. You were flying in. Like that's kind of how we worked it. And then
We
you had,
had to because it was we all had jobs and families and this wasn't like, you know, a little sprint. This was like this we knew this was going to be a marathon.
Well, and you don't know. I think that's the thing the whole time is you don't know
yeah,
how long things are going to be. So like dad wanted me to stay the night, at the hospital and like mom's home
yeah.
and not, able to
She's not
like take
mobile.
care of herself and I'm like, you have to like take care of yourself a little bit and when those crisis kind and you want a bed and not sleep in a chair in a hospital. And there was one night in particular that he did not want me to go. And I'm like, Dad, I gotta go. Like, and the hospital was an hour away from
Yeah.
Amelia.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
he, I think he had weird dreams that night. And he wasn't very vocal because he was, either intubated or had just gotten unintubated and he had a really raspy voice. But, it was scary. And like you didn't know at that point that would like he was so close, like that he would be gone within like 8 days. Like, of course I would have stayed there. But like when you have decades of like
Yeah.
Yeah.
doing this, it's like you don't know that the end is so close. I mean, at some point we did know.
Yeah.
But
I
he's
mean,
been
even with
there.
mom, like every time I'd be like, tell the kids, I'm like, you better hug her like this is the last time. We probably did that for 10 years. Like it almost became like not a joke, but she definitely I think she surprised us all that she outlived dad for 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Annie, like I want to like address the guilt thing because for what you said with Tom, because I think some of it's just geography, right? Like we've got
Yeah.
this snowbird situation where he's in Michigan and in Georgia. But I know, and I can speak for Susie too, like if we needed you, you'd be there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you know what? And to address that too, is that we all have different skills in this whole
Yeah.
caregiving circle. And just recently, when Tom had the urinary stone, we called
We didn't
you.
know it was a stone. He just
Your,
couldn't
yeah, but
pee.
your professional expertise in the Cura Strategies world, you called in somebody from your office who was an expert in kidney because we're like, look at these pictures. Like, is this kidneys? Oh, yeah,
Is
you need
this
to.
is this normal urine? Like you could show
Yeah.
someone this color
So
because
you
they're
have
saying, oh,
that.
he's on a blood thinner. It's normal that his pee is like blood. I'm like, I don't
It's
think
scary.
so.
It's scary. And so, like, how would we know that? Like, and we know we can trust you, and you've got a team of people. Like, that's what you do. So, you
Hmm.
come in at a certain level that is incredibly helpful. So, I think we all have our own. You know,
Yeah,
I'm kind of hands-on. We always
I'm
said that
great.
with mom, with dad and mom. We said that with mom. You were, what? Elizabeth was hands-on for a while when mom was
Oh,
in
yeah. I was
Tampa.
special projects.
Yeah, you were the
Special
financial.
projects.
Yeah,
I was special projects. That's what with dad, when dad passed, I was finance. Like I took over that
yeah,
for a minute and then it got to be too much for me. And, we knew it was like a long haul thing, but just to make sure that we were paying the bills and like, we all had our little assignments. I was finance, but I always felt like I was like special projects. Like if you needed respite or you guys were going away or like, oh, well, like when Tom needed cars, like doing the research for the
Yes.
cars and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Research and development, special
Research and
projects.
development.
Yeah, like and Annie, like I think it's sometimes like I don't want to give everybody the impression that like we always agree, we're always like we get along and we're very close. But
Yeah.
sometimes we have differing opinions during care. And I think Annie, you offer sometimes that perspective because you're not in the thick of the day to day that you got kind of have this um gift of helping, I think
Yeah.
I'm not wording that very well, but
The middle
um
ground or like trying to like see it a little
You could
clearly.
be a little more objective because you're not in the
Yeah, yeah.
day-to-day, the emotional part of it. Like, so you're like,
yes.
you're just
Because it
hearing a story.
sucks.
Hmm?
Let's just say that it
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah. It's
It
like
does. Like having,
hard.
it's hard. I think what makes Tom hard in particular is that he's not a very joyful person.
Oh,
He's
oh,
he's he's not very appreciative. What's his favorite saying that he always says to us, Susie?
You're always thinking about yourself, Susie.
Yeah,
Sue,
he
he
says
calls
it
me
to all of
Sue.
us. You're only
You're
thinking
always
about
thinking about
yourself.
yourself, Sue. Yeah.
We get the sergeant
Yeah,
emoji
yeah.
in our text. Like
We remind
he
him friendly things, friendly reminders, and we always get that yes, sir, like that.
he left the holidays this year, like something set him off, and he told all of us to kiss his ass. We said, "Merry Christmas, Tom. Kiss my ass," and he's out the door. Like, so it's hard. It's hard to take care of somebody who is disgruntled and crabby all the
And
time.
that's the
But
thing. Tom wasn't always like that. He grew up,
no,
he was, you know what? And we do have conversations like he grew up umpiring. He grew up, I think, having more responsibility somehow over the years and not, not, he sees us growing with our lives, marrying, having children, reaching these landmarks that he knows intellectually, like we know he's at like what they always said, like a fifth grade level, but
Mm.
emotionally he knows he should be reaching landmarks, and I think over time it's made him angry. It's sad to watch, and we are now really struggling with resources for how to deal with this because it's gone beyond the scope of what our knowledge base is.
Sure.
Well, and I think he is like, to your points, he's like, we're his siblings. Like he's not resentful, but he's not going to take anything that we say. We can't do it for him. We can't keep his wounds, clean and cared for. We can't, make sure that he's drinking water. We can't walk for him up and down the street to improve his overall health and buy his, he's capable of buying his own groceries. Like it's so hard um, to take advice from us, like, because we're not his parents, we're his siblings, and I think we're trying to figure that out right now. We've got, by the time this comes out, we'll have feedback from a psychological testing that we've had done for him to see, we need things that on paper of what he has so that maybe we can open up more doors for resources. Maybe we can make sure he's on the proper protocol as far as therapy and medications. And I'm hoping that we get the answers that we are looking for from that.
Yeah, for people who don't know Tom, like he's fairly independent. He can drive. He can live, he has to live with someone, but we manage his finances, his health care. But he goes out, he can shop for groceries. He loves to play bingo. He has certain activities he likes to do. But over time he used to always live with mom and dad, and then since mom and dad passed, he's been spending the summers with me here in Michigan, the winters with our brother Tim, who's single in
Hmm.
Alpharetta, Georgia, who has a nice room for him. He has a really nice situation in both places, but lives a very isolated life. So, and when you
Yeah.
were talking about how we don't always agree on care, I think it took Elizabeth found this facility. It's a independent
It's a community. It's
community,
Annandale
and it
for
took me.
people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Yes. And it took some prodding for me because to agree to say like, and now I'm totally on board because I do think Tom's quality of life will be much better with the interaction of the staff and people who will just get him out of his room because he just like sits in, he's over time, he's gotten pushed out of some of the public places he can go to up here because of his anger and his comments and his inappropriate behavior. And it's unfortunate because he's lost some of the places he'd like to go out to eat or play bingo without me having to go with him now. And so I think it'll be a
Yeah, we
good,
haven't gone back to the one in Georgia.
yeah,
My role of when he's in Georgia is he's Tim's his roommate, and I see myself kind of as his primary caregiver when he's in Georgia to coordinate his doctor's appointments and his socializations. But we have not been back because he got kicked out last spring. And maybe we'll try again or find a new place. Like that's kind of seems to be the thing. It's like, okay, that didn't work. We'll have to find another one until he burns the bridge there. But it is really, there's a pattern of this. And I do think that part of the paperwork that we had to get for this community was his official diagnosis and his behavioral information. So we had to pay for that to kind of get him on the official waiting list. But it's not a big place, and they have like a year or two waiting list. Like they're kind of a unicorn place. To my knowledge, there's only one in Chicago, one in Georgia, and one in Texas. So in some ways, we're lucky. Like it's not right next door to me, but it's 45 minutes an hour away, and in Swanee, Georgia. But yeah, I feel like we won't know unless we try it, right?
right.
And he'll have a
Okay,
case
so
manager, hopefully, that will like be his person.
Yeah, hopefully they'll
Okay.
take them. Hopefully it'll all work out.
What
So
are your
that
thoughts, Anne?
my thought was the question was my role in caregiving, and then we kind of got on a tangent, but Susie hasn't described hers yet.
But
Oh,
what?
Susie didn't describe her care role.
Oh, she didn't describe her care role, and she's like such a big part,
I
like
mean,
her, like
My
Susie
care
kept
role?
mom
My
alive
care
for
role with
6
Tom?
bonus years. And I will say, like, we'll link to, we've had Susie on the podcast 2 other times. So one while caregiving and then one after caregiving ended, because I definitely, that's its own stage after care has ended. But yeah, Susie is the glue.
yeah, Elmer. Yeah, she's the glue.
Call me Elmer. You're sweet. Yeah, I manage all of his financial and his health, other than when, yeah, he's in Atlanta. Elizabeth needs to take him to appointments, and unfortunately that's been a lot lately,
What's
but
hard? The system's not set up for snowbirds. Let's just say that too. Like he's at different doctors in different places. Nothing all works together.
saying that though, our insurance agent is very good because he's got Tom on a policy that I did not understand why, but he gets the best care. There are Humana, facilities in Georgia as well as up here. It just gets a little tricky with the Medicaid. That's to me what is so there's a lot of it takes exhaustive amounts of hours to figure out how the Medicare, Medicaid, you know, as of recently, I think Elizabeth, through your knowledge through Happy Healthy Caregiver, you said to me, Susie, you need to call Humana. You can get a point
Case
person,
manager.
a
Yeah.
case manager. I didn't even know that.
I
So
didn't know that. I just learned that recently. Like
yeah, but
learning new
everybody should
things.
know that. Everybody should know through your healthcare company. So now I have someone. I have a point person. I have a case manager nurse I can call. Now, this has just been in the last couple months, but I also have someone who will help me with his behavioral health who suggested, something that might be good for Tom is group therapy. I can
Yeah.
help you find a group therapy situation in Alpharetta, Georgia, because they also work there. That's we're still working on that piece. So, but these things, I have a binder this thick of like Tom, and my organizational system is like a binder, and then it's got an index, and every doctor, every resource, is a number in the index, and then behind that number, I have all the backup. I can't do it on the computer because I feel like sometimes that binder has to travel with him.
Yeah.
I like it in paper version, but
Why is it so hard?
it's
Why does it need to be so hard? And that's, Annie works a lot in that space with healthcare PR and people making changes and, government moves way too slow for all of us
Well, most
in this.
recently they sent Tom came home and said, I can't, he could not go to the bathroom. He had this urinary stone. He went to the ER, and the next day they sent him home that night. Tom, who probably, we can only imagine how he was describing what was going on. And then they're giving him all these directions of this is what you need to do. This is your checkout discharge. He's with nobody.
With no,
Nobody.
but they sent him home with a
And
catheter, like what blew my mind. I was like,
Yeah,
what?
fully catheter, are developmentally disabled, and
Seemed like
he,
a great idea. He didn't know how to change it himself. I'd go
yeah,
over the next day. Thank
he
God
called
I
me.
went
It's
over.
getting full. I call Elizabeth, you need to get over there. He doesn't know what to do with this. Our brother Tim, who he lives with, had to go to work. He gets up and he's out the door at 7:30. I'm not even sure if he knew in the morning that
I don't
that had
think he knew that he
happened.
had a catheter either.
Yeah.
It's, I can't believe how the time is flying by too. But like, let's talk about sister power. Like, who coined that? Who coined that thing that we did, sister power? Like, where did that come from? Anybody remember?
you.
I believe
What?
it's you, Elizabeth. I did not. You're the one that coins all these great phrases, I think. I don't, what do you think, Ann?
I feel like it was down when in that month when dad was dying. Now we know he was dying.
Right.
And we rented the house with a family that came in, and we just were the people that were like coordinating all these moving things. We had to figure out like how to move mom and Tom, and it just felt like, oh my gosh. And so we would do this, like the thing we did in the beginning, the sister power unite with the fists, because it just was, yeah, like energy. Y'all energized me for sure. Um, you know, I still think we do rely on sister power to help caring for Tom. Like Tom is its own thing. And we've talked about, our plan for him and how it's impacted some of our relationships. We've had some disagreements, but we're definitely all aligned, and definitely have disagreements with Tom on a regular basis. Any advice that you guys would give to people who are like siblings like us who are managing care for aging parents or managing care for other siblings? Like, what are we doing right? Is there any lessons learned here? Anything we can pass on to other people?
Hmm.
I think it's just to be transparent as much as possible, you know? I mean, I feel like we all tend to be, I mean, family's important to us, and so we're gonna do what it takes and take care of each other, you know, and maybe not all families are like that though, so it's hard. You know, my advice to families that are like ours is like be transparent, be open,
Yeah.
um, you know, talk to each other, use resources, you know, in terms of like trying to share things like the Google shared documents and things like that where we can. I mean, it would have been so much easier if we had some of that stuff way back when. Um, but for families that like sometimes they're just kind of doing it by themselves and like their siblings are, you know, it's like waiting to see who's going to raise their hand. And
Yeah.
um, I think you just got to be like really specific about like this is what can I count on you for? And um making schedules and things like that, I guess. It's like I don't really know. I feel so blessed to have you girls that we're able to talk and support each other, not just like with the physical caregiving, but the emotional and mental part of it too.
I think to your point, like we have a very unique family. We've got three boys, three girls. One does need help. And we're not all like, on the same level of action taking. Sometimes the way that like Skip's got his strengths, our oldest brother. Like if you need to buy a new computer, if you want to pay him to drive Tom north so that he can play golf when he gets up there, we have found some of the strengths that he has that where he's willing to kind of lean in, but we know he's not going to be a part of the day-to-day conversations. And so we've accepted that. And I call him consistent. Like that's how he consistently has been. Tim is again, maybe not necessarily part of the day-to-day decision making, but the big decisions, I'd say that he's a big part of that. He certainly has a big role in being a roommate with Tom, who's not an easy person to live with when he's in Georgia.
And when you
Um,
tell him to do something,
he'll
he'll
do
do it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
like
does
being
whatever you ask him to
specific.
do. Yep, yep.
And I think that took us a minute to get to know too, is like he's not going to see it, but he's certainly going to get in and get his hands dirty. But somebody has to kind of be this management person who's seeing the bigger picture and hopefully delegating it out, because if not, it's a recipe for burnout. If you don't have a family like ours, like it's harder. It is. Um,
I feel for people who don't have siblings. I have to say, you hear about it. I'm sure you do, Elizabeth, all the time. One thing I would suggest is if you can, we tried this with our parents to get them to, not, it's kind of sad to think about the end game, but in an organizational way, just try to slowly start to downsize over time. It's taught me great lessons over, how to stay organized, getting your financial picture organized. There
yeah.
are resources out there that you've suggested to me that have helped me put all that. I'm not a big fan of the digital because you just don't know. Like I remember how we couldn't even get into Dad's computer. We didn't even know his logon. So, but if you can organize those things and start to think about the downsize and what you want your end of life to look like or what you want for you know, those
I
last
think it
care years.
definitely has infused that in me. I remember after we went and helped Megan with our cousin who's lost both of her parents,
Mhm.
and we had to help clean out that house. Like that was very impactful for me. I came back and started labeling my rings and
Yeah.
getting we digitized our videos and like all of that stuff, and just thinking about even like cleaning out my office recently. I'm like, I don't want my kids to have to figure out what to do with this. I'm going to make a decision with this right now.
Yeah.
But I do think care has influenced us more. And for those who are solo caregivers out there, there are ways, like to Susie said, like you've got to grab your resources. And I'll link to an episode I did about solo caregiving. We'll also link to something about generational clutter, because I think we've mentioned that a couple times, and of course some of the other things that we've talked about. in this episode. But let's turn to the channel to self-care. I mean, there's so much we could unpack on caregiving. Like it's so big. But we also want to make sure that we're not burning out in the process. What do you all do? And what do you do to help nurture your health and happiness? And I'm not just talking about physical, but spiritual, social, emotional, financial, professional, all of that. Like what do you do to nurture you?
Um, well, I read the Bible. I try to read it every day, even if it's just like 5 minutes sitting in my
Like
car
the
before.
paper Bible or
No, I have the Bible app, although
okay.
my church is doing like something, this Grace Community Church is doing like a challenge like on their app, but it's, they have a plan and um I'd like to find different plans for how I'm feeling or whatever. So that's a big part of it. Is that for me is is really, and then I like to listen to books on tape, podcasts, reading, that kind of stuff if I, in my free time. I wish I'd like to exercise more. I mean, I do try to exercise. I know, Elizabeth, that's a big part of your mental health, but and I feel better, a lot better when I do it, but I'm not in the place in my life right now where I can say that that's
Yeah.
part of what's
No
giving me
guilt.
mental health. Yeah, it's just um
We're all a work in progress. Like none of us have it like perfectly figured out. So it's like you try on different things and figure out what's working for you, and you keep the things that are definitely grounding you. Some of these habits you've had a long time, and then we're always looking for kind of some things that might help us out there. I'm curious, did you do your 20 for 25, Ann, and do you have
I
anything?
did.
What's something on your list there?
I did my 20 for 25. I have some spaces open. Oh gosh, let's see. I'm going to Cinque Terre with Jeff and Tyler and Susie.
Yay!
So hike the Cinque Terre, bike Luca, the Wall of Luca. Want to visit Connor in Alaska. A lot of travel, obviously. I want to recarpet my upstairs. I want to try a bungee class. I want to read 12 books. I want to volunteer with
A
Tyler.
bungee class. I'd
A
never heard of.
bungee
Oh,
fitness class. Woo! I don't know. We'll see.
Oh
Not
my
sure if my
gosh,
daughter's gonna
Annie.
handle that, but I think it would be hilarious. I gotta get some tape me. Maybe we should do that together.
Yeah, if there's one, I'd be up for that because I think I have tried a new workout class on mine. Too
yeah.
funny.
Yeah, so go to Tennessee with the family. Yeah, those are some of the ones that come to mind that I, want to go to a
Fun.
musical. Yeah.
Suze, what do you do for your self-care?
I'm with Annie. I get up and start my day every day. In fact, I'm sitting at the desk where I do it. It's right at you. I don't know how to flip the camera, but the lake is right out here.
It's
I sit there every
beautiful.
day. I watch the sunrise. I read my Bible. And
With some
Annie,
coffee.
you guys, yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
inspiration. I journal. I journal a lot. I journal about, thoughts. It's more inspirational, like gratitude journaling now. It used to be, a different thing, but yeah, I work out. I don't know if you can, I ride a bike. I don't say I work out, but the things I like to do physically, I love to ride my bicycle. I don't, it's
Oh, I can
blurry.
see it. You have one bike on the trainer.
Yes, I
Oh
bought
yeah.
one of those magnetic trainers and I have my bike inside and I can watch TV now and ride. I like to walk. Um, oh, yoga. I've been doing like some core exercise in the morning. I have a little routine. I'm a big
Hmm.
believer, and I've been pushing this with my kids in routine. And I know it's weird, but I tell them to write down on index cards, literally, like everything you want to do in a day. And then it always gives me a point. The day's not always going to go perfect or that way, but you can always go back to that. So I
Kind of grounds
constantly
you.
thinking about, the bookends of your day, most important, start and end your day kind of the same way.
I like it.
Yeah,
What's on your
self-care.
20 for 25, Suze? What are some of
Oh,
your
I have,
things?
I just returned, so I have not done my 20 for 25, but I will. Certainly going to Italy with the Woodburys was not on it, but now it is. I'm like, why not? Yes.
Anybody want to learn how to play mahjong with me?
Yeah, actually, that sounds interesting.
I
I mean,
love the tiles. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's I saw that on Natalie had it on her list too. So, that's something. Yeah, uh, I think it's fun. The point of that
well,
is more
yeah,
more fun in
with
our
Maggie
year.
recently engaged, I'm sure I'll have a lot of travel back and forth. Planning that. You froze a little bit there, Elizabeth, but
Yeah. We'll link to the 20 for 25, and so folks can to check that out.
and it's not like resolutions. It's more what
No.
you want to do in 2020, like little things, right? Like
I got a
this.
couple other resolutions for like work stuff that I want to
Yeah.
do, but
Yeah,
like
this is not drudgery. This is
this is
fun.
experiences, like things you want to experience more.
All right, ladies, I gotta get your opinion on the Just for You daily self-care journal on some of the prompts that we have in here. And I thought it'd be fun to kind of pick out your birthdays. So Annie, we're gonna start with you. Your birthday is actually the same as Jacob's birthday. My
What's my
son,
birthday, buddy?
yeah, birthday buddies. So it says, what's one local attraction you've been meaning to visit but haven't yet?
Oh, um, I mean, there's so much of the Appalachian, Shenandoah area, but I just read Marjorie Merriweather posts like the fictional one about her. It's like a historical.
Memoir type of thing?
It's not, it's like historical fiction, but it's about
Okay.
her life. And like she had a place here in Bethesda that is like been donated and it's supposed to be really
Huh.
extravagant. So now that I have like the background of her and the whole Post family, I kind of want to go visit.
You want to dive deep into that. I love that. I love when books, I love to read books like y'all are going to Cinque Terre, like reading books about that location. Soaking up all of that is good. Okay. And then Susie, your birthday question says, yours is a little bit harder. I'm just going to
Oh.
warn you. It says, you forgive yourself for dot, dot, dot. What's something you forgive yourself for?
Oh boy, can I have Annie's question? I want to go.
What'd you say?
I said, can I do Annie's question?
I know. Yeah.
I forgive myself for.
Is there anything you beat yourself up for the past and just like, I'm going to forgive myself for this and move on?
Um,
I'll answer for you.
Okay, Annie, you take it. What a nice sister you are.
I know. I think there are times when you would say when you took care of mom for 6 years and the over 2 years that she was bedridden. And sometimes I think you feel guilty that you didn't do more for her. Like you didn't stop
So
and just
crazy.
and like massage her hands or something. And it's like you did so much for her.
you
And I
know,
just think you need to forgive yourself for that.
Thank you, Anne. I know what you're talking about because, yeah, people would come in to visit and they'd be fresh and all these great ideas. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, why don't I do that? Maybe I should.
Because you're
Yeah.
keeping the lights on, Susie. You were like grocery shopping and cooking the foods and coordinating the doctors
And changing her
and
and
making sure med things were filled and putting on her breathing treatments that she was fighting with and all of yeah, changing her like it's there's the logistics of all of that I think make it and you did do some of the other things. There were certainly times you played cards
oh yeah.
and watched programs and stuff with her. It's listen, there will never be bored.
Yeah.
There's always going to be more to do. Well, we can't end on that one. So I picked National Sisters Day. Um I think it was August 4th. I'm not sure if it was the 3rd or the 4th because it's like I bookmarked that day, but I'm pretty sure it was this question. What's something you were afraid to do and did it anyway?
Oh, I'm afraid to do.
So you got out of your comfort zone. And
Moving here, moving here. I was nervous about moving here,
that
leaving
was
my,
huge, Suze. You
I know,
packed up your house in Philadelphia and just trying to sell that while you were caring for mom.
yeah.
That was a
I'm just,
huge.
I'm going to put a plug in for this book.
Okay.
This is Calling. I had a very good friend who gave me this book back when, I was divorced in 2015. And, yeah, honestly, I look back now and journaling's good for that because you look back and you're like, how did I do that? Like if someone told me I was going to do it now, I'd be like, no way. But it was a huge leap of faith to do it. My children were just going into college and, yeah, sometimes you jump into things and, who knows where the future will bring me, but, I have to say, I've been very happy here. Love living at the lake. It's been a very good, a good place to regroup,
Yeah.
emotionally from all the things, losing our parents, going through a divorce, my children going to college. I'm not quite sure I'm still over kids leaving the house yet, but but
I mean, there's all these grief isn't just losing people. It's like a lot of
life
change in things. Yeah,
Mhm.
but it's coping with that. And if people want to experience your little slice of heaven up there, we'll certainly link to the Acorn Cottage so they can check that out. And I have just, I could talk to y'all forever. I always say that there's only one thing wrong with each of you. Anyone know what this is?
We
We
don't
don't
live
live
close, we don't live
together.
next to each other.
That we don't live next to each other. So that's the only thing wrong with you guys. So I just thank you for being a part of this, 200th episode. I hope people got some interesting perspectives and resources and information out of this. Any closing words of thoughts from either of you? And then we will certainly link to all of your places where people can connect and get in touch with you and your businesses.
Proud of you, sisters.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Elizabeth, on this milestone. It's a big one.
Aw.
So
Love
proud
you.
of you. This has been a great conversation, and
Aw.
we could talk to you girls enough. I know we could talk all day. Thank you for sharing this 200th episode with us, Elizabeth. Very proud of you.
One more time.
Sisterpower.
Sisterpower. Love you, ladies.
Love you. Mwah.
Thanks for listening to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast on the Whole Care Network. I hope this episode provided encouragement and practical tips to infuse into your life. You'll find the show notes and all the resources mentioned at happyhealthycaregiver.com. I also invite you to check out previous episodes of the podcast that you may have missed. If you enjoy the show, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Ratings and reviews also help others discover the podcast, and sharing with a fellow caregiver is a great way to spread support. Stay connected with me between the episodes by following Happy Healthy Caregiver on your favorite social media platforms, and subscribe to the weekly newsletter where every week I share something happy, healthy, and care related. Just visit happyhealthycaregiver.com to join. Until our next episode, I'm Elizabeth Miller with a reminder to take care of you. Are you still here? Well, it's time for the disclaimer. I am not a medical, legal, or financial professional, and I am not providing medical, financial, or legal advice. If you have questions related to these topics, please seek a qualified professional. I have taken care to spotlight family caregivers and experts, but their opinions are theirs alone. This podcast is copyrighted, and no part can be reproduced without the written permission of Happy Healthy Caregiver, LLC. Thanks again for listening to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast on the Whole Care Network.